A quick email here from a P1 listener who says, I was listening to you all, and Chris Kelly mentioned living in a house with a friendly ghost. This was on Halloween, and like 35% of people said, I would love to live in a house with a friendly ghost. You know, one that just knocks around a little.
Do we know, I can't remember, Kelly, if you had the stats, not to interrupt the email flow, but do you remember if we had the stats on how many people believe they're living in a haunted house?
No, I don't remember that. No, more than half of people believe in ghosts.
More than half?
Yeah, it was right, like 52% believe in ghosts.
That's a lot, isn't it?
That's pretty high.
That seems high.
Biggie's a
big time.
Why do you believe in ghosts?
I just think it's real. I think that you see the apparitions, you see this stuff happen, the haunted
Enough
houses.
has been said and done.
Yeah, and done. And I've had a few weird experiences in my life, like living in what we found out later was a haunted house.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
You lived in what was a haunted house?
Yes. My parents never wanted to acknowledge it till we were grown.
Mm-hmm.
But lots of weird experiences in this house we rented for about 2 years.
He's doing the...
Food disappeared from the refrigerator.
All right, now.
Pantries would be emptied.
Okay, wait a minute now. Let's see here.
We found out later, we think the person we rented it from, we think his mother died in the house like right before we moved in.
Mm-hmm.
That's why it was available. But of course, they didn't tell us that.
I see.
And I'd hear
you don't
things.
have to disclose that.
Yeah,
you don't.
No, you're not.
You don't.
You don't have to.
But we'd all hear things
Uh-huh.
walking. One time, my mom was down in the basement, had an old creepy basement, and she heard like the back door open and close, and thought she heard somebody say like, "I'm home." And she thought my dad came home for lunch, and no one was there.
Really?
And then, you ready for this? After we moved out, it burnt down.
No kidding.
Like you could. So my theory is she was not happy somebody was
Well.
living in her home. So mysterious fire too.
No kidding. All right. Interesting. Well, the P1 listener who wants to remain anonymous says, I never believed in ghosts, but we moved into a house. The previous owner and the builder of the house had died in our son's upstairs bedroom. We knew this upon moving in. Almost a deal breaker for me. Nothing happened for a few months. Then about 3 months after moving in, we started to smell cigarette smoke only in the upstairs in that bedroom. It was driving my son crazy. Apparently, the previous owner was a cigarette smoker. We could also hear people talking. It would sound like talking, but you couldn't make out what they were saying. On 2 occasions, my wife and myself felt someone jab fingers into our ribs.
Jesus, come on.
Fingers into ribs?
Fingers into ribs. Lights go on and off. Faucets run on their own. My kid says he has seen an older man walk up and down the hallway at night. Now, I've never seen it, but my son says he has. Every so often, you hear what sounds like people talking, but you can't make out what they're saying. Both my son and I have had these same experiences, and my wife, and the fingers in the ribs now.
Got some fingers in my ribs.
I know you have, Dave. You can't
I like
count.
to put my fingers in ribs.
Well, you can't count that.
Saucy.
Lisa, you're talking about ghosts and living in a house with ghosts. More than 50% of people say they believe in ghosts. 30% say they'd like to have a friendly ghost in the house. What do you say?
Well, I didn't believe in them until my daughter at age 26 had a major stroke. And as we were working through it, and as she got better and she could talk more, she sees ghosts. She sees dead people all the time. I mean, we'll be having a conversation and she'll look somewhere else. I'm like, what are you doing? She says, there's a man right there.
Oh,
but
my goodness.
She explained it as like they were passing through, like it was not always the same one.
Wow. Do you think maybe it's just because of her stroke? It's her mind doing that to her?
Well, I would have said that, but then the grandkids would say the same thing.
Oh, yeah. Well, kids always see them more than we do.
Mm-hmm.
Kids see them, and they'll say, oh, yeah, there's a man over there. Okay, interesting,
I
Lisa.
smell cigarette smoke.
That's the kid smoking upstairs.
Is it possible the kid was smoking
Covering it up.
and
Of course it
covering
is.
it up?
It's a ghost, Mom. Of course it is.
It's a ghost smoking. David, you're talking about haunted houses and friendly ghosts. Go ahead.
I'm in Salisbury. I own a haunted house for 20 years, didn't realize it.
Mm-hmm.
And then one day I began to notice that my tenants had a consistent record of staying about 2 years to move out, another move in, 2 years, move out. So finally, after about 20 years of this, I asked one of my tenants, why are you moving out after 2 years?
Mm-hmm.
And they said, well, don't you know about the little old lady in the house? No, I don't.
Mm-hmm.
I took it as a joke. And the next several tenants who stayed and moved out, I asked them the same question. They told me the identical story.
That there was a little old lady living in that house.
Yes, these tenants do not know each other, never talk to each other. I laughed it off.
Yeah.
Well, one day I went down to the house that was empty now, and I was preparing it for a future tenant. And just like in the movies, the interior doors of the house started slamming. And I stepped out in the hallway, and I yelled, "Stop doing this. I'm the tenant, landlord of the house.
Mm-hmm.
Stop trying to spook me, because without me, this house wouldn't be here."
Right.
Well, it sort of calmed down, basically. The same week, I was in the house cleaning with some cleaning fluid. I set the bottle of Windex directly behind me, started cleaning the window. When I turned around to reach for the bottle of Windex, it was gone.
Little old lady took the bottle of Windex from you.
I looked everywhere and couldn't find this bottle of Windex. And to this day, I don't know where it is.
She took the
She must
Windex.
have been so thirsty.
Did she finish the windows?
Yeah, she should have done the
You
windows.
get a ghost
for
that
you.
does windows.
That's
Yeah,
pretty
she's
good.
not paying
Hang
rent.
on to her.
Are you still renting it out, and do people always say they see the little old lady?
Well, because the tenants moved out so consistently, I actually sold the house to somebody.
Did you tell the person that there was a little old ghost living in the house?
I did.
Yeah, and they bought it anyway. Have they had any experience? Have you talked to them?
Not since they bought it. It's been about 2 years now. I haven't said nothing to them. No.
Time.
Now's the
2
time.
years.
You should
Yep.
call them. I believe you. I buy it. Thank you, David. Here's the reason I think yes is because so many people tell those types of stories. And it's like, I mean, where's that Windex? Okay. You know, who's smoking upstairs?
Who's smoking? Who took the window?
Who took the Windex? You know, stuff like that.
Yeah,
the
these,
doors.
these can't be explained.
Doors slamming and stuff like that. Yeah. Well, I mean, you hear one, you explain. You hear 100. I mean, so many people say they've seen something.
It's all in their heads.
Even this man right here. Look at him over there. Look at Biggie.
Oh, I'm looking.
You know, he's saying there's a lot of stuff that went on in that one house. Aaron, you're talking about these ghost stories. Go ahead.
Hey, yeah, I lived in a house in Southern California with my parents. It was a 5-bedroom ranch. It was really long, and we had a pool in the backyard. And there was this little old lady that I guess that lived there 2 or 3 times before we did that died. I can't remember whether she committed suicide because she was sick or whether she was just sick. But my dad always kept his dirty magazines in the master bathroom. And when nobody was home, 13, so I'd be going after my dad's magazines, and that little old lady just loved to just pop out right there around the dresser, stop me in my tracks, and then how do you go forward? Nobody's home, you're 13, the mood it's killed. It's over.
You're telling me you were ready to get down to business, look at the magazine, and a little old lady popped out and slapped you on the hand.
They weren't, yeah. I mean, she just would be smiling. Real creepy little smile, long hair. She also used to love to pop out, like, when you were in the pool, you could see all the back windows of the house. And she loved to pop out there when you were under the water. Like, you'd be under the water, and you'd look back up at the house, and there she'd be in my parents' bathroom.
Man, and did your parents saw her too?
I don't know about my mom or dad. My sister, who she reads palms and stuff, so she brought it up years later. She goes, "You mean the haunted house?"
Yeah.
I'm like, "What haunted house?" So she told me, I said, so it all clicked, and I'm like,
yeah.
"Oh yeah, I remember."
That's the one that stopped you from your bathroom activity.
The Gilf ghost.
What a story. Thank you, Aaron. What do you say now, Dave? This guy couldn't even complete.
At age 13.
He couldn't complete. He's trying to get to those magazines.
Not in my house.
Who can blame her, really?